Tell him, McCluskey. Tell him what time it is.
Little Hen says it's time to rock and roll.
All you people are so scared of me.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
Man, that's just me.
I'm Batman.
This is Sparta!
There is a tiger in the bathroom!
I'm an excellent driver.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Pop quiz, hot shot.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
Looks like the toad overestimated the height of his living room ceiling.
Hey, Griswold. Where do you think you're going to put a tree that big? Bend over and I'll show you.
Hello and welcome to the 2015 Monday Movie Show Awards Spectacular Countdown Chart Thingy Doodle.
Hang on. I can do that better. I can just do dan dan dan.
Okay, I was going to say I tried to fit that title in the heading on our site, but it wouldn't let us.
No.
Because it was just too long. And trying to actually fit that on any kind of cue card or something like that is just too long. You have to have the thingy doodle at the end of it. It just adds something to it. But yeah, 2 shows in 1 week. That's a rare thing for us, isn't it?
Two shows in as many days.
Yeah, the only time, this is my 3rd show in 3 days. the only time we ever do that is because it's Christmas. And so at Christmas, we look back over the year. We look back over 2015 with fond memories and absolute detest and hate as we go over our favourite films of the year and also those movies which make us very rant heavy, makes for the interesting reviews, makes us just go hell for leather on something, because we do watch a lot of films, 200 plus movies, and not every movie can be an absolute masterpiece. Not every movie can be really enjoyable. There are films out there which also can be part of the dark side, part of evil, part of something that makes you bang your head off a wall and think, why am I watching this? But we're here to celebrate both aspects of movies, so the best and worst, and we'll also be handing out some awards. We've still not got a statue made up. We need some kind of statue made up.
Nah, I think I mean, it's those kind of things, if you send it off somewhere, they'll probably just go, what the hell is that? And then it'll just be sat there on its own, left on the pavement, in the rain, rotten away, sad by itself, laughed at as people walk by.
Very much similar to what Mark Kermode's Kermode Awards do.
He gets his back though, doesn't he? If they win an Oscar afterwards.
Yeah, but it would be really funny if one year we nominated, say, Ridley Scott for an award and he won, and we actually got a message of Ridley Scott saying thank you very much for the award.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
There is a chance.
No, it's not going to happen.
Hit by a bus, then hit by a train, then struck down by a meteorite, and then exploded by some lightning. But there's still a chance.
Yeah, not hold my breath.
Yeah, so what we're going to do in the first half of the show is look over the best 10 films of the year and the worst 10 films of the year. However, Andrew has kindly not got together 5 musical interludes.
Kindly not got together.
Yeah, I'm going for double negatives. 5 pieces of music from films that were out this year, just to whet your appetite, just to give you a little bit of a teaser before we get into the meaty good stuff. So before we get into the best 10 films of the year, he's chosen one track for us to listen to. So what have you picked?
It is actually from, and you're going to hate me for this because I know you weren't a fan of this film, but it's from The Man from U.N.C.L.E. because it has got a fantastic soundtrack and a great score by Daniel Pemberton, who has done a great score for this film that I really, really enjoyed. So I picked out one of the tracks for that I'm going to play. And I'll play that just now before we go into our best of 2015.
So that was a piece of music from The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and you're right, I didn't like the film. The music was okay, but it pretty much sums up the entirety of the movie. It's all style and no substance.
I found that it was quite a nice, classy sort of soundtrack to it, though, that I really kind of liked that. From the very opening, there's a song used at the very start, I can't remember it, but then the theme sort of carries on through that, and I just really enjoyed that about it.
Yeah, but at least in favour of The Man from U.N.C.L.E., it didn't make the worst 10 lists. However, we're looking over the best 10 films of the year. I know people might think it's a slight strange way of doing the best 10 films of the year, then the worst list, but it's us and we don't care, to be honest. So we'll get into the 10 films that we deem to be the best of the year. So at number 10 is Ex Machina.
Yeah, which is an interesting movie because of the fact of that. First of all, it is Alex Garland's first directed movie, and secondly, also written by him. So it's a movie that he wrote the script for. It's not based on a book or anything that he's written before, because he originally is a novelist. But he has written a script and then also directed the script to screen and done a really good job with it, because it's one of these interesting films where it's the whole thing about the question of, well, not reality, but intelligence and artificial intelligence and life and the risks that come therein of creating artificial intelligence. But obviously centering around the characters you have there of Caleb and Nathan, played by Donald Gleeson and Oscar Isaac. And when he is brought into his boss's, I wouldn't say life, but into his boss's kind of sanctuary away from the world, where he has created this artificial intelligence, Ava, played by Alicia Vikander, and asked to basically test her and make sure and tell whether or not she is just a program or whether or not she is actually artificially intelligent. And it's one of those films that it will leave you questioning all the way through it, right up to and past the end. It's an interesting film. That it's just one of those ones. It's kind of one of those puzzles that you watch it and afterwards you go, I wonder then, does this, and it kind of sparks off something in your head, which is very rare, and it's very good at doing that.
Yeah, it is, even though the end little bit is tiny bit weak. It's just the rest of the film, because it is so strong, you sort of forgive the last 10-15 minutes of the film. There is a part before you get to that part there where you think, oh, that would have made a better ending than the way it has ended. But overall, it's just the performances, because it's a three-hand performance. It's a triangle, but an interesting triangle from Alicia Vikander, Oscar Isaacs, and Donald Gleeson. Alicia Vikander's had an exceptional year, because she's been in multiple films and she's shone as an actress. But
is in upcoming as well. A couple in particular, the girl,
Danish girl.
The Danish girl, yeah. Which people who have seen it already are saying, Oscar nominations.
Yeah, but it just shows you that each one of the actors needed to be strong for the characters that they were portraying, because Donald Gleeson's character is sort of like a fish out of water. He's got this envy over his boss. Everybody who works for the company that he's working at has got envy over this boss, mysterious boss, and they want to know who it is. Given the chance to meet that person, you're obviously going to jump to it. And then you've got Oscar Isaacs, who's sort of like segregated himself off absolutely everybody, who's created this artificial intelligence, and in a way that's the only kind of interaction that he has with any kind of society. And then you've got Alicia Vikander's character, who is this one, but she wants to evolve. She wants to be something that she was not created to be. And so it's just an interesting dichotomy between how a human acts, how an artificial intelligence acts, and how you question what is human and what is robot. And so it's a very smart, intelligent science fiction film, and we very rarely get them. Mm-hmm. Number 9, changing the tone completely. It had to be in there somewhere. it's the Minions.
Yeah, I mean it's a fun kids film, but it's not just for kids. I mean it's Kyle Balder and Pierre Coffin who do the voices as well for the Minions.
It's just Pierre Coffin who does the voices.
Is it just him? I thought it was both of them that did them as well.
He does the voices of every single Minion.
But it's just insane the amount that they put into the film, and the little characters that there are to them. I mean, for the majority, you do have just the three: Stuart, Bob, and Kevin, yeah. And then you do have obviously as well the other ones that pop up at the beginning and other bits. And it's just there's each one of them has their own personality, their own quirks. And there's just it's minute to minute laughter going through it of just little gags, and they're not all just in the forefront. There's lots of background things and the stupid things that the Minions do, but it will just make you giggle and laugh, and it's a fun movie to have that you can't help but watch it and just enjoy it and love it.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there when you said each one of them have got their own personalities, because it could have just been one of those ones where he copied and pasted all of the Minions and didn't make any of them talk, or didn't just let them be background characters and just concentrated more on the three main Minions, when in fact that's not what the Minions has always been about. The Minions, even though they are created, or in this case the way you actually see it, from little amoebas right at the start of the film, and evolved that way, so very much like humans, but each one has their own personality, each one has their own traits. They come from three different Minions, but each one of them does have their own personality. So you might have one who's a cross-dresser, but then you might have one who's a practical joker, and unfortunately in my case a Minion who's got a sexual fantasy of fire hydrants, especially yellow ones.
I mean, it's great as well. You have this great little narration by Geoffrey Rush over the start as well, and that part of it, and he's so dry but brilliant and clever, and it's brilliantly timed and works in it that it sets it up very well as well, without having to be one of these narrations that you go, I don't need it, too long. It's there enough and that's it.
Yeah, and it is one of those ones where it's really weird seeing this, but see it on DVD because there is extra bits in it. So in the intro, it's about a 10-minute intro charting the life and the evolution of the Minions, but watch it on Blu-ray and DVD because that's where you see the extra little bits and bobs in it. But it's stupidly entertaining.
Yeah.
Again, changing tack, we're not doing this for fun, but this movie might actually surprise a lot of people because it came out from left field, and it was just a movie that nobody actually went to see, which is a shame, and that's The Dressmaker. Yeah,
it's an odd thing because of the fact that it's a film I only just managed to get to see it at the very end of its run in the cinema, which wasn't very long after it started, and I was seeing it just basically because I was curious. I wanted to see it. I'd heard good things, and I was absolutely blown away by it because I just did not expect it to be one as fun as it was, because it's a fun comedic movie at times, but also then to be in some parts as dark and as darkly comic as it is. There's some bits in it which are darkly humorous, very, very darkly humorous. We're talking about, people dying humour, which is very hard to pull off in a film, and yet in this it pulls it off very well because it has this. You have this whole thing of it sets up the characters very well for the sort of first half of its running time, and then has the payoff in the last half of the film, and you have a great cast around there, but in amongst them as well is this great performance by Kate Winslet doing an amazing job with an Australian accent and completely blowing it away.
Yeah, it is a really, like you said, a dark film. The humour in it is very well implemented in the movie because it needed that. If it just stuck by being a dark drama, then I don't think it would have worked as well. But because the fact that it has got the humour interleaved into that, you care about the characters. You feel for the characters when something bad happens to them. And it's a very interesting, small little story. But again, like with the Minions, everybody has their own traits. Everybody has their own interests. And so that's what made the movie much more interesting than a lot of snivelly critics made it out to be.
Yeah, it was surprising that it didn't get a better response, because it definitely. I'm surprised there wasn't more word of mouth spread for it. I think if the right people had seen it, and then word of mouth had spread, it would have been a bigger film, a bigger hit.
Yeah, at number 7, teaming up with one of the biggest directors in the world, with one of the biggest actors in the world, with another stage actor who very rarely appears in movies, it's Bridge of Spies.
Yeah, I mean Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks. It's it's a foregone conclusion that it would be good, but was it a foregone conclusion that it would be this good because of the subject? It is about the Cold War and a serious drama, and it's oddly enough the fact that it's written by the Coen brothers adds in a little bit of humour here and there as well, which helps to kind of keep it the levity of it a bit higher. But it has got at the centre of it this great performance by Tom Hanks. It's not a career best performance by Tom Hanks, and it's not a career best direction by Steven Spielberg, but it is very high up there. And the thing that it is really surprising is Mark Rylance in the film, who completely just blows away any scenes that he has in the film with Tom Hanks. He stands out amongst him. I mean, it's only a supporting role because he's not in the film in that big a role, but it's a film that it makes you stand up and pay attention. And it's another one. It's one of these sort of historical things that maybe not a lot of people know about. This whole thing of the trade between the East and the West with prisoners of war, even though there wasn't really a war. And it's this kind of part of this sort of history that is interesting because it's not such a dark part of history. It's actually kind of an encouraging bit of history of seeing when there's the potential here for this to end up in a war situation, and yet there's this character played by Tom Hanks who was a real person who put himself on the line to make this happen and to be able to bring people home and send other people back to where they came from, and not have it be people being executed for crimes of spying and stuff. He made all that happen.
Yeah, showing the erection of the Berlin Wall is a really hard thing to get right on cinema, and it's just the way the film actually flows until it gets to that specific scene where you see the wall starting to get built up, and which involves one American student who's just there to study, then all of a sudden getting caught up in it, and you think the movie's going to just be about one thing, and then it throws that into it to make it even more personal, especially for Tom Hanks's character. Makes the movie a bit more interesting than what you might think it could have been. It could have just been a courtroom drama. Spielberg.
I have no problem with courtroom dramas, but yeah, I'm glad it wasn't, because he does more with it than he would have with a courtroom drama.
Yeah, and so you've got the courtroom drama anywhere with the Mark Rylance character, but by adding that other character who was kidnapped, it changes the dynamic of the film a lot more so, and so it expands on it more. And so the film itself does become a bit more interesting. It does have its moments where it sags a little bit, but because the fact that you have got high caliber acting on display and a director who knows what he's doing, then you forgive the parts where it does sag down a little bit. Back onto films that people might not expect to see on other people's top 10 lists, but we are slightly different from other people. Well, we like to think we are anyway. So at number 6 is interesting thriller The Gift.
And again, going dark, because it is a very dark film as you get into it, and it's one of these ones that you don't want to spoil, so not going to go into it too far, but basically it's a thing of that it centers around this couple, Jason Bateman and Rebecca Hall, who've moved back to New where he grew up, and are moving into a house. He bumps into someone who he used to go to school with, played by Joel Edgerton, who's written and directed the film as well, and it starts to stir up things, and that there is a history there between them, that potentially an undertone of things are going to happen and what will happen, and it's a really at times quite disturbing and dark film, but it's carried off with gusto and with skill, and with I would say, even though it's a gusto, with a kind of a reservation to stop it from going too far and getting out of hand. And you get a lot of films like this that towards the end, as the film builds and builds and builds, it kind of just loses control and momentum just goes all out, and it completely loses it. This doesn't. This actually is a measured, controlled film, and it's a real good sign of what Joel Edgerton can handle, because I certainly look forward to not only having seen him in other films, because he's listed in amongst my favourite films for the year for different things in his performance and such like that, and I would love to see whatever he does next directing as well, because he's definitely got a keen eye for it.
Yeah, and it was one of those films that came out of left field. It was one of those films that very few people knew what the movie was about, and you didn't hear lots of plaudits getting thrown out by critics and all that kind of stuff. It didn't get much press, and it was a movie that its expectations were okay, fine. It's a movie starring Joel Edgerton and Jason Bateman in it as well, and it's directed by him. Could it be an interesting film? And then it turns out to be as good as it is. It is this very smart thriller with some very interesting twists and turns. The way the story's actually told out, it does get into really dark territory. So I really enjoyed it. It really surprised me. Number 5, back to form for one of used to be a huge, massive director, and when he's in good, capable hands of a fantastic writer as well, he's able to pull off a movie like The Martian.
Yeah, that's Ridley Scott, of course, and the writer of the screenplay is Drew Goddard, and it's based on the book by Andy Weir. So obviously there's a lot of story to this because it's gone through that stage of having been a novel first, then and quite a well detailed and thought out, technologically thought out novel, and then they've adapted a brilliant adaptation of it by Drew Goddard and then handed it over to an absolutely superb director and had a great cast. And the thing is, it's got Matt Damon at the centre of it, who is largely the only person in the film for 2/3 of it, 3/4 of it, and it has to rest on his shoulders, and it does so quite comfortably. It is a real nice film, that it's not just the fact that it's enjoyable, it runs along, it's a 2 hour and a bit film, but by the end of it, you are literally kind of at the end of it, you go, you know what, I want to watch that again. It was so much fun. It was great. It was nicely handled, brilliantly directed, great performances, and actual sort of tension and thrills throughout it, as well as having little bits of humour which are needed to kind of break the levity again.
Yeah, because it is delving deep into a man that's been abandoned, pretty much. It doesn't matter where he's actually been abandoned, but it is how sanity takes hold of you when you're left on your own, and you need to try and survive. And in this case, it's on the horrible planet that is Mars. And Matt Damon handles himself brilliantly in the film. It's very much like Castaway, but instead of it being Tom Hanks with a beach ball, it's Matt Damon speaking into a camera, trying to make potatoes and things like that. So yeah, it's a really smart, interesting, very well written, very well directed film. Now, the movie at number 4 is a movie that Andrew knows very little about, and considering that he is doing the best top 10 films of the year, and this was me arguing for this film to be in there because it needs to be in there, and that's animated film Song of the Sea. Yeah, I mean, we do have this thing where if one of us we basically combine our lists, that we have our own lists, and then if there's one of us hasn't had a chance to see one of the others, if there is a particular case for that, then the other person has to make it. And I kind of gave in on what he told me about this, what I understand from this film as well, so obviously that's why it's here. Yeah, it's from Tom Moore, who's he doesn't do very many films. Previous to doing Song of the Sea, the only other films that he did was a segment in the animated movie The Prophet, and also back in 2009 he did an animated film called The Secret of Kells, which is a fantastic animated feature, and that was his first feature film as well. He's got another movie coming out. He's just announced it called Wolfwalkers, and I'll gladly sit down and watch anything. And what their Song of the Sea is just a very small little story that centres around a little girl who could be a Selkie, which is a spirit in Irish folklore which lives in the sea, and so it's a sea spirit. And the movie is just absolutely sumptuous. It's gorgeous. It's beautifully animated. The story is a very simplistic story about 2 kids who get took away from their father, who lives in a lighthouse, by the father's mother. And it's up to the 2 kids to try and find their own way back home, because they do not want to live with their grandmother. And simple storylines need something to latch onto, and everything in the movie just attracts you to it. It makes you take note about what's happening. The music in it is just absolutely sumptuous, and everything just melts together into one amazing animated feature film. And so that it was actually took note of other studios out there. I always hark on about Studio Ghibli and how fantastic they are and how they hold the torch for 2D animated films, and that studio now is no more, unfortunately. And it's nice to see that there are other studios out there that do films in the old-fashioned style, in the 2D style, and I just cannot wait to see what Tom Moore does next after things like Wolf Walkers, whenever that comes out, because he is just somebody you need to keep an eye on in the animation states. Now on to number 3. It's a film which you've definitely seen, and it's very rare when we do our top 10 lists that we include movies from early on in the year, because we always seem to forget about them a little bit. But this movie was always in our brain, and that is Whiplash.
Yeah, and it's because of the fact it's such a torrential sort of emotional film, and it's the fact that you do have this whole experience leading up to it, but in particular those last 10 minutes are just a torrid hit of music and the tension and the build up and the action, and it's a big action set piece around someone playing drums on stage, which you would not think is going to be as amazing and as just engrossing as it is. But not even that, just the lead up to that as well, the whole of the film leading up to that, with you have Miles Teller as this budding drummer who wants to be really good, and he's at this music school. He gets put into this class where he is treated basically as a lower down and horribly by his music teacher, played by J.K. Simmons, who does just a despicable, but it's again one of those kind of like this horrible characters, but they're so engrossing and so just interesting that you cannot look away, and you keep watching it and you're so into it because of they just hold your attention so much. And it's this kind of this relationship between them. It's the whole thing of that it pushes his character to get better and be better, and then this whole thing of the conflict between them as it goes on, which just it makes for an engrossing, fantastic watch that really does stand out as one of the best of the year.
Yeah, it is fantastic. It is one of those movies when the credits come up, you're still stuck in your seat because you need to take a breath. You need to breathe a little bit, because like Andrew's alluded to, the last 10-15 minutes is such, it just zaps every bit of energy out of you to watch it. So it makes you think what Miles Teller went through and what J.K. Simmons went through to do that kind of thing, and how J.C. Chandler, who was the one who directed the film, how he actually... No,
it's Damien Chazelle.
Yeah, Damien Chazelle. Why have I got J.C. Chandler on my brain?
I don't know, but that's I can't think of the name of the film now. A very thing of the year, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, yeah, it's just how it's actually done. So the film itself is absolutely just breathtaking, and when you're still stuck in your seat once the credits have gone up, you need the ushers to throw you out of the cinema, because you just can't move.
You've been pulverised by those intense minutes at the end of it.
Yeah, at number 2 is a studio that's back on form after dipping a little bit over time and being sort of like the leading light when it comes to animated films, and that could only mean one film, and that's Pixar's Inside Out. Yeah,
it is an amazement. And the thing about it is that it is Pixar doing what they do best, which is doing innovation and something new, and they've come up with these bizarre ideas of the whole thing of these little characters inside every person's head, which are, you know, the personality traits for each person. You know, you have your anger, you have your fear, you have your disgust, and you have your joy, and it's all around those characters inside this little girl's head, and the world that is created as she's growing up. And as a result of that, when things go wrong, one of them ends up sort of travelling through all these different worlds in her head and finding all these weird things, and while also sort of showing what it's basically it's an interesting thing, a weird way of showing kids why they may act a certain way and why they may behave a certain way, and helping them to understand that, which is the thing that's really interesting about it, is that it's not just, it's one of these ones that obviously for kids and adults again, but it has this kind of weird message that kids will get, and they'll go kind of, oh well, you know, sometimes I'm upset because of this, sometimes and they, you know, obviously it's not real, but they will be able to then maybe start thinking about, oh, why am I getting angry because of this, or why am I happy because of this, and I don't want to be angry, I want to be happy, so of course I'll do this. And it's a weird way that Pixar has this thing of having that which will affect kids, which is really clever, and it also, as Pixar does very cleverly, affects adults in the same way.
Yeah, you get in the big guns when you need to actually when you realise that the previous animated films that you have released haven't been as high caliber as the ones that you're sort of like lauded over, and so you need to get the main man who is in a way single-handedly thrusted Pixar to the top of their game, and that's Pete Docter. He is somebody who's been involved with Pixar's biggest films, everything from Toy Story to WALL-E to Up. He was involved with them all, and so you sort of get this feeling that when you hear that he's been attached to the latest Pixar movie, that it's going to be something special, and that's exactly what we got with Inside Out. It's something special. It's this year it's been like a chocolate box of brilliant animated films, and it's been such a nightmare, and I've got the unfortunate task of choosing the best animated film of this year, but it's been such a nightmare to try and do it. And it's testament when Pixar, a big huge massive American studio, can manage to pull off a movie where it's got, in a way, a simple but complex storyline. It is that weird thing, and just involving a 12-year-old girl and her emotions. And you think, when you see that on paper, you look at it and think, that can't work as a movie. But in the right hands, it definitely can, and it's in the perfect hands with Pixar.
So shall I play the number one clip then? The clip for the number one movie?
Not just yet. We'll go over from 10 to 2, and so recap is that number 10 is Ex Machina, and number 9 is Minions, number 8 is Dressmaker, at 7 is Bridge of Spies, 6 The Gift, 5 The Martian, 4 Song of the Sea, 3 Whiplash, 2 Inside Out, and at number 1...
And how exactly do we take the Citadel? Assuming we're still alive by then.
If we can block the pass, it'll be easy. All that's left are his war pups. And War Boy's too sick to fight.
And we'll be with Nux. He's a war boy. He'll be bringing us home, bringing back what's stolen as he's meant to.
Feels like hope.
Look, it'll be a hard day, but I guarantee you that 160 days ride that way, there's nothing but salt. At least that way, you know, we might be able to, together, come across some kind of redemption.
And it is Mad Max Fury Road, which may surprise some people, but we both agreed on this, that it was our number one film of the year from this top 10, because of the fact of that it's a film that just completely blew us away. And I mean, it did. It was a film that we did not expect to be as crazy and as insane as it was, and yet we were completely pulverized by it. It is largely an action film, but it's not just an action film. It has character, it has plot, very, very minimal, but it is there. And it's just one of those films though that it's kind of a thing that once it starts, it is a ride that does not stop, and you go absolutely crazy on it, and you are there for the whole of it, and you're just sitting there smiling as it's punching you in the face.
Nice way to actually put it. You're smiling, saying yes, please give me more, and then you're just constantly getting smacked in the face even more. So yeah, it's a really way to say it. Best say it. Yes, this is our film of the year, but it is one of those movies where you watch the trailer and you think you've given too much away in the trailer. That's it. That's all the set pieces. Oh God, no! Even the 3-minute trailer where it was just nothing but action from the start to the end of it. That's a basic snippet of what you get, of what the movie is. It's just big huge massive set piece after big huge massive set piece with practical effects perfectly melded with CGI when the CGI is needed in some awe-inspiring stuff. For example, when you went to see The Mummy for the first time, when you saw the Arnold Vosloo character when he does the face on the sea, you think that's spectacular. Yet when you watch it now, you look at it and go, I thought that was spectacular. Whereas when you see the scene that involves them driving into that huge massive sandstorm, I've got a feeling that in 5-10 years time you look at it and still go, that is spectacular, because it's done so well that it's like I said, it's melded together the practical with the CGI, that it hasn't relied heavily on the CGI. It's relied more heavily on the practical stuff, and that's when it's harder to date a movie when it does something like that, and it's testament of how brilliant and how over the top insane Mad Max is.
Yep, and it's all down to George Miller, who's done all the Mad Max films so far and does a fantastic job with it. It's just he knows his stuff and he knows what he wants to do, and he just does it.
Yeah, and we've got another Mad Max film to come.
Yeah, hopefully everything's looking good for that.
Yeah, so that's it for our best 10 films of 2015. We are going to go on to the worst list, but before we do that, Andrew's got another piece of music.
Yep, a very late entry into my favourite films of the year, the music for the films of the year, because it's one that has only just come out, admittedly. It is from Star Wars The Force Awakens. John Williams back doing the Star Wars theme as he has for all the other ones, and it's up there with all the rest. It is a fantastic soundtrack. If you haven't heard it, then if you haven't seen it, obviously where you've been, but if you haven't heard any of the Star Wars themes, then, you know, what are you doing? Where have you been? You should at least know some of them, and this is a track actually from it, which is for one of the main characters, for the character of Rey. So it's a little bit, it's obviously Star Wars, but it's a little bit different and something new, which is what some people may not have heard. So we'll play that now. So that was from Star Wars The Force Awakens, and going now into the rest of the show, we're going into the worst 10 films of the year. Now obviously 2015 has its fair share of films, but these are going to be amongst the ones that we think were right up there at the top, or shall we say bottom of the list.
Bottom.
Yeah, that's not in there though. Minions doesn't deserve to be anywhere near these ones. Of course, you can't have the good without the bad, because you wouldn't know one without the other. But do we really need to have them this bad? Starting at number 10 with Entourage, the movie.
Now, I have to admit, hold my hands up, I've never watched a single episode of the television program of Entourage. Were you the same?
I have to, yeah. I've seen. I think I saw one of them. And I caught it somehow, but it wasn't a thing of Entourage, I want to see that,
Yeah, so it wasn't characters that I knew about, but as soon as exiting the cinema after seeing Entourage the movie, because Andrew was the unfortunate one to do the main review of the film itself, but in my sort of trepidation, I decided to check it out to see if it is bad as what Andrew thought it was, and yes, it definitely is, because it was just 2 hours of self-flagellation of characters that you don't want to spend 2 minutes with, never mind 2 hours. They're horrible. They are just a group of horrible people. No one has any decent traits whatsoever through the entirety of the film. Everybody is just out there to one-up each other, even though they're supposed to be best friends, when in fact, if these were your best friends, you might as well just go lock yourself in a room and never ever appear ever again, because they're just horrible people, and that's not how you make an entertaining film. Yes, if you're a fan of the TV series, you might find something in this, but that's because you've spent 5-6 seasons with them, so you know what they're like. If this is the only kind of thing that you have with the characters from the film itself, I don't know how you can actually survive through 5 or 6 seasons. I could barely survive through the 2 hours.
And we continue into the TV adaptation genre with in a different sort of fashion, because it's not one directly from a series carrying on the same characters. It's a kind of remake of a TV series from the 90s, made now with Denzel Washington in The Equalizer.
Yeah, it's directed by Antoine Fuqua, and he did Southpaw, which it's 2 completely different sort of films in a way. And out of all the films that we've got in our worst 10 list, The Equalizer actually has the higher Metascore. It has a 57 on the Metacritic score, but that doesn't mean that we agree with that. It should be knock a good 30 points off that, because the film itself, despite having a 10-15 minute opening where you're thinking this might be an interesting movie, it just throws it completely down the toilet and becomes so generic and so bad that you question what was Antoine Fuqua doing. If he sort of is the director who did Southpaw, and even though I had problems with Southpaw, you might think, well, he might have directed the first 15 minutes and handed the torch to somebody else to direct the last 2 hours of the movie, because that's what it felt like. It felt like the last 2 hours of the film did not belong to the strong opening 15 minutes of it. And it's annoying, because you've got some really good actors in there, in the form of Denzel Washington and Chloe Grace Moretz, and actors like that. But you've got a terrible film, terrible lazy movie, straight after something that's quite interesting.
Yeah, and as someone because you didn't really know the TV show, but I knew the TV show, and for me it was the fact of that they really took and disrespected a TV series that I really did love growing up. The original series was with Edward Woodward, and they took the character of a person who was a sort of an ex kind of CIA type operative, and who had decided he had enough and wanted to now do something and help people, to basically make him into a character who just becomes a serial killer. And it's just wrong. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible.
Yeah, definitely.
Moving on then to number 8, and the entry there is Accidental Love.
Yeah, this is a film that you've not seen, and
No.
Again, like we explained with the
I've seen the trailer. I didn't want to see
you.
the film. I didn't want to see the film after that.
Yeah, just like we proved with the top 10 list, there are certain films that we might have on our own personal lists, and we sort of argue for the fact that there needs to be in the worst list. And then the thing is with Accidental Love, it's a movie that should have came out in 2009, because David O. Russell was the one attached to direct it. And
Excuse me. Sorry.
You're allergic to Accidental Love, are you? But yeah, it's a film that just disappeared, and then for some reason it came back out under the pseudonym of Stephen Green, and so David O. Russell's name disappeared from the directing chair, and Stephen Green's name appeared. And so it makes you think there's something seriously wrong with this. But it is another one of those movies where you've got such a strong casting, like Jessica Biel and James Marsden and Bill Hader and Jake Gyllenhaal as well, and you think, yeah, it can't be as bad as what it might be, and it turns out to be horrible. It's a romantic comedy with a woman who gets hit on the head and she needs to sue or find $150,000 to try and get some surgery to get her memory back. And she goes on a sort of like a trip in a way, a sort of like a stumbles through life to try and get this money to be able to get this surgery done, and everything is just really badly implemented in the movie. Every actor who plays every character in the film just looks like they don't want to be there. They haven't a clue what's going on. They probably read the script and at gunpoint and said, "You better act out this character, or that's it. You're done in Hollywood." It just makes you question why somebody would put themselves through such a dross movie just to sort of like play a role. It's ridiculous. It's an awful film.
And remember, we are going further up or down the list depending on how you look at it, so it's going to get worse than that with the next movie, Mordecai.
Yeah, Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp, an actor who we love to hate, and in most cases hate a lot. Because he always seems
I don't mind him that much. You hate him.
Yeah, I'm sick of him. Really sick of him. But he always seems to play the exact same character no matter what kind of movie you put him in. And so some smart person thought, David Cope, who directed the film, he thought, you know what, Johnny Depp can do some really funny voices. Why don't we get him to play a bumbling, stupid British agent, MI5 agent with the worst moustache possible? Team him up with Gwyneth Paltrow and have Ewan McGregor in the movie, and it's going to be comedy gold, and have a character called Jockstrap played by poor Paul Bettany. Yeah, that's definitely not a melding pot of actors and characters that you really want melded together, because you'll know that it's going to give the worst tasting food possible, because Mordecai is awful. It's just really awful. It never gets any of its jokes right at all. No matter what Paul Bettany tries, he really tries his hardest to save the film in any, give it some kind of grace. The second Johnny Depp pops up on the screen, that is eradicated just straight away. So anything good that this movie does, Johnny Depp manages to single-handedly destroy.
It's kind of like it just wants to be a English version, but it's American made, obviously, of kind of the new thing of the Inspector Clouseau and Cato sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it wants to do that, and it's just absolutely horrendous. It really, really is. If you don't trust us, then see it for yourself. But then don't blame us when you say afterwards that was a complete waste of 2 hours.
Yeah, don't send us horrible messages if that's the case, because then it's your fault.
Yeah. Strange Magic is at number 5. Sorry, number 6 even.
Yes, getting a bit ahead of yourself there.
Yeah.
But Strange Magic it's under the George Lucas banner. Strange Magic.
Well, it used to be George Lucas' banner. He did well. I mean, I wonder if that's the reason why he sold Lucasfilm.
Yeah, and so when the film was actually made, it was under George Lucas's banner. But then he probably looked at this film and thought, I need to sell my company straight away, because this movie is going to ruin us. It's one of the ugliest animated films I've ever seen. Because none of the characters in the film are designed very well at all. They've got this really sort of like gargoyle kind of look to them, and not in a funny kind of way.
We have seen worse. We have seen worse last year.
Yeah,
Tarzan.
It's a musical as well.
Yeah.
And none of the musical numbers in it is just interesting. When you've got really good singers, because Evan Rachel Wood can sing. Kristen Chenoweth, she really can sing. She's got a fantastic voice. She was in the original stage version of Wicked. And so you've got some fantastic singers. Again, like with Johnny Depp and Mordecai, no matter how well an actor tries, they can't single-handedly save a movie like Strange Magic, because there is no interest in there for kids at all. There is no interest in there for adults at all. So what's the film aimed at? Who's it aimed at? Animated wise, it's not aimed at anybody who has an interest in animation, because it is so ugly that it would just turn anybody off. It would turn milk sour and make anybody lactose intolerant. It's just a really badly created characters, really badly created storyline, and just downright ugly movie.
And it makes Epic actually look like it's worthy of the title.
Yeah, exactly.
Number 5 movie is surprisingly coming from a director, Vic Armstrong, who's directed several Bond films and second unit on a lot of Bond films. It is the horrendous Left Behind.
Now, we can include it on our worst list of the year because it came out in the UK early this year, in January, February time. It was released in America to the end of last year, and so you saw it crop up on a lot of people's worst film lists, so that's the reason why we can include this. And what they've done is they've got a big actor in Nicolas Cage and made him as a pilot when the apocalypse is happening. Now, this is a remake of a film that came out in the early noughties, so 2001 I think it's when it originally came out, and that version was panned. And so why would you remake a film, especially the fact that you are actually remaking the series, because what the director has done is he's decided to remake the sequel as well. And why would you remake a such panned kind of movie? Do you think you're going to be able to save it when in fact, no, you pretty much make exactly the same worst film? It's one of those, no offense to people who are very religious, it's one of those religious science fiction films, and it's a hard thing to sell to people who are not religious. And I would say, at a guess, the movie going public, they don't want religion pushed down their throat. It's not something you want to go and see at the cinema. It's not a nice kind of situation to be in, unless it's an entertaining film, to have religion pushed down your throat. Whereas in this one, it just heavily relies too much on it. Oh, let's pray for Jesus because he might be able to stop the apocalypse. It's a terrible, terrible film that you would slightly forgive if the Sci-Fi Channel created it a show at 3 o'clock in the morning after they've shown all 3 Sharknado movies, when in fact this wasn't the case. This was created to be shown in cinemas, and it makes you question what the hell is Nicolas Cage doing with his life when he accepts movies like this. And surprisingly, this is actually the worst Metacritic scored film on our list, and that comes in at number 5, yet we think there are 4 more films much worse than Left Behind.
Oh yeah, and there's an oddity to it as well. The next few films actually have all of the numbers in place of their location in the list. So the next one we have at number 4 is Fantastic Four. See what we did there?
This was, I'm sort of like going to pass the baton over to you, because you were the one who argued for this film to be in the worst film lists. And so I'm going to let you say the reasons why it deserves a place in this list. Because
it's a complete disaster of a film. It is. I know the Fantastic Four characters from the comics. I know the whole thing of them, and I absolutely hated the Tim Story ones that were made, the 2 films that he made back in the early 2000s. And then of course there's this one being made now by Josh Trank, who has shown that he knows what to do with superhero kind of things, with I forget the name of it. Chronicle, yes, thank you. And it's the thing of that. Then he's been brought onto this, and there have been so many problems. We don't know exactly what's happened, but we've been painted a pretty good picture that it was basically just badly handled by everyone involved. Him, the studio, everyone. And it's got characters in it that aren't the characters from the comics. There is no characterization for them majority of the time. The film has no story and no pacing, and nothing happens for the first hour. It really does stretch out things as long as it does. It has some nice moments in it where it tries to have sort of these little horror kind of homages with the way that the powers work when people have given superpowers, but then it does nothing, absolutely nothing with them, and it wraps up things at the end with, you can obviously see it's a tacked on thing where someone's come at the end and gone, oh, we need to fix this, it's a mess, and they tried to do a patch up job for it, but it doesn't work at all. It's a complete and utter mess. It's horrible. It's worse than the Tim Story films, and that is really saying something.
Yeah, I agree. I would gladly go back and watch Rise of the Silver Surfer again, the original one. Gladly do that, because it's just, we heard a lot of turmoil and trouble that Just Trank had with the studios, and it can't be that bad to make a film that just has no clue what it's doing.
It's a mess. It's horrible. So on to the number 3 film, which is Human Centipede 3: The Final Sequence.
Yeah, now this is my personal worst film of the year, and I sort of lied when I said Left Behind had the worst Metacritic score. Can you guess what score this has got on Metacritic?
1?
5.
Okay.
It has a 5 on Metacritic.
Out of?
Yeah, it's just... We could be here a while if you unleash me on the Human Centipede 3, and considering the kind of film that it is, it's an 18-rated film from some guy who thinks that he's making the sickest movie ever created, when in fact he is just making something that just enables him to get his jollies off. Tom Six is not a director that you want to watch any of these films. Well, apart from the original Human Centipede, because it has got an interesting thing to say. It has got an interesting social thing to say. Whereas in fact, Human Centipede 2, which was my worst film when that came out, and now Human Centipede 3, which is my worst film of this year, and our third worst film, it's just... He just tries to create something that disgusts people when in fact it annoys the hell out of them. So I'm not going to dig deep down into the cesspool rabbit hole that is the Human Centipede 3, because the content that is inside the movie, it's not suitable for this kind of show. If you need to hear my rant about it, listen to my review of it when I reviewed it on here. Go and listen to From Page 2 Scream when I talked about the film, and I spent a good 10-15 minutes just absolutely hating the movie with every single profanity I could possibly see it, because it is really that horrendously bad. I've never seen a Tom Six film again, and he has turned around and said that that's it for the Human Centipede series. However, he is coming back with a movie that is going to be even more disgusting.
Human Spider?
No, it's got nothing to do with melding people together to make the longest thing ever. It's just, I don't know what director's obsession was with creating humans into something else. Because if you look at a film that was released early on this year, turning a human into a walrus in the film Tusk. How does that work? Which, by the way, that's also on my worst film list of the year.
Yeah, but I didn't see it, so we didn't really go for it. So the next movie, the number 2 film, worst film of our year, is Hot Tub Time Machine 2.
Yeah, I'm guessing you're sort of like with me when you didn't mind Hot Tub Time Machine.
It had a certain charm to it, and it actually did have laughs in it that made you laugh, and as much as it did have kind of the gross out factor in there, it didn't really it's one of those films that it knew when to reel it in. Well, the first one did.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those movies when you're finished watching it, you're not going to say, oh, I definitely could do with a sequel.
No.
When that's exactly what they've decided to do, but they threw it into cinemas. They knew it had absolutely no chance whatsoever, and it was one of the worst taking films at the UK box office this year, because the fact that they've got so many detestable characters in the movie, and it heavily relies on something that the original didn't heavily rely on, and that's gross out humour, when we know that gross out humour doesn't work unless it's in the hands of somebody who can be able to handle that, i.e. Jim Carrey in his early days. He was able to handle these over-the-top, silly, gross-out human kind of movies, but still make it watchable for everybody. So if you look at Liar Liar or Ace Ventura, they're PG-rated films or 12-rated films when they have this silly, over-the-top slapstick humour, but they work because they're funny. Whereas this one, it's just all characters are detestable, all jokes are not funny at all, and it just relies on that lowest common denominator stuff when you just don't want to see that kind of stuff. If it puts you off other films, what makes you think that it's going to be acceptable in something as horrendous as Hot Tub Time Machine 2?
So recapping on the worst films of the year for us, from 10 to 2 we have Entourage the movie at 10, the Equalizer even at 9, Accidental Love at 8, Mordecai at 7, Strange Magic at 6, Left Behind at 5, Fantastic Four at 4, Human Centipede 3 The Final Sequence at 3, and Hot Tub Time Machine 2 at number 2. And drum roll for the number one worst movie.
Worst drum roll ever, but
yeah. Which this clip will possibly give away or not, depends who's seen it, who hasn't.
Oh, those are stars.
Yeah, those are for you.
Oh, so pretty.
I knew you'd like them.
How was your day, Maxie?
It was good. It was really good. It was the best day I've had in a long time.
Good. You work so hard.
How was your day, Ma?
Better now that my Tatalo's home.
Yeah. Hey, Ma, let me ask you something. You ever wish you were somebody else?
I'm your mother. That's all I ever wanted to be.
But if you could do whatever you wanted to do, what would it be?
Have dinner with your father. That would be nice.
That would be really nice.
And it is, of course, an Adam Sandler film, The Cobbler.
Now, you heard that clip there. When you listen to that clip, it makes you think that actually can it be as bad as it is? Because you do, when I was listening over that clip, you think to yourself, it might have this melancholic kind of feel to it. It might have this dramatic feel that Adam Sandler is sort of like lacking from doing because he has done it before in things like Punch Drunk Love. But it just makes you think to yourself, could this film be as bad as it is? And now, the thing is, though, that clip is a testament of what the film is actually like, because the movie is one of the most deceivious films I've not only seen this year, but ever seen. Because it makes you fall into a false lull or a false sense of security, because the fact that the film itself it doesn't know what it wants to be. It tries to build itself as a drama with comedy elements to it. Yet other people will look at it and say it's a comedy film with drama elements to it. And I look at it and think it's an absolute mess on both accounts. Because it centers around Adam Sandler's character, who owns a shoe store. And every single time he uses this machine to fix somebody's shoes, as soon as he puts these shoes on, he becomes that person. Now, it's an interesting concept, but when you put it in the hands of somebody like Adam Sandler, all he wants to do is the wrong things. And so he wants to wear the shoes of this guy who he's sort of like, he's got a fantasy about this girl who keeps on coming into the shop. And so he steals the shoes of her boyfriend, puts them on, pretends to be her boyfriend in a sort of like really seedy kind of undercurrent kind of way, and then slips out. And he's pretty much pretense of the entire film. He puts the shoes on of people who he wants to be in a nasty kind of way, and you're meant to feel sorry for him, when in fact I felt disgust, because the fact that a director has took a very interesting premise, a very sort of like touching premise in a way, because you listen to that clip there, and his mother is not of good health, and he tries to, instead of pulling at your heartstrings, just stabs you constantly in the heart and makes you feel really horrible, because that's what the movie makes you feel. I never get angry at movies. I try my best not to get angry at films. But there are times when movies will push your buttons for the wrong reasons. And this film just pushed me so far over the edge that watching another Adam Sandler movie ever again is just going to make me throw up. Because I detested the film. And detesting something is not a thing that you should say, right? Because it's a harsh thing to say. But I hate movies which manipulate you so bad that it makes you angry after seeing it. I absolutely despise The Cobbler. and that's the reason why we had to make it our worst films of the year, because it is such a detestable, nasty, manipulative movie.
And that brings the list of our worst films of the year. I mean, it's really quite surprising that an Adam Sandler film is the worst film for... This has been, what, the third year?
Pretty much, yeah, but it's annoying as hell, because you know that there is some little spark inside of Adam Sandler that he can do something that's good. That if you look at his early career, Billy Madison, for example, he can do comedy.
Happy Gilmore. Happy Gilmore, of course, yeah. his first and best film.
Happy Gilmore, yeah, you know that he can do well. Punch Drunk Love, you know that he can do drama well. Whereas in fact now he's just looked at his career and he's sort of like laughing at himself, but for all the wrong reasons. It's a career that is so toxic that you couldn't even bury it into the middle of the earth to get rid of it.
Gonna go on to another music break now, and just to explain this and set up this one, because of the fact of that it's one that may not be sort of thought of as being potentially a great piece of music, but it's one that I really do love the score to this film. It is largely an action score, but it's because of the fact it is from Fast and Furious 7, or just Furious 7 depending on where you're from. And the thing is, I just want to mention about the fact, obviously, if you're aware or not, the whole thing of Paul Walker dying in a car accident at the end of last year, which caused problems with the production as he hadn't finished filming. They then did special effects and things to make the film work and put it all together, and surprisingly did a film that was not only complete and did a good job, but also was kind of a worthy sort of send-off for him. And how they treated it as well. And that this is a clip from that. It's not that clip or anything, because the clip in the film to do with that is actually a song. It's not soundtrack, it's not score. But this film is sort of a return to Brian Tyler, who has done a lot of the film music for the Fast and Furious films going back the last 3 or 4 films. And he has these themes that he's brought into it himself, which just make it a fun, enjoyable action film. But it has this feeling of great action to it. So I'm going to play that just now. So, going back now to our awards for actors, which is basically our actors categories. We're going to go through Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, and Best Supporting Actress. Of course, then starting off with Best Actor. What we'll do is we'll announce each of the categories you're going to, and then the other person will give theirs, because we obviously have a difference of opinion over what we give out, who we think is the best actor or best actor. We haven't combined them for this list. But we'll do this sort of separately. So if you go through your best actors first and your winner of best actor.
Yeah, this year's actually been a pretty decent year for acting. There's been some really high caliber acting, and I've chose 5 that deserve to be mentioned. Oscar Isaacs for Ex Machina is one person who I definitely think that he did, because he's sort of like his role in Ex Machina sort of like stole the show a little bit. Yeah, I think he was the strongest out of the 3 that was involved in that. Then you've also got rhte Lapucci for a small little indie horror film called Spring, which I really enjoyed, and it's a two-handed affair, that film, and I think he was strong in that. Joel Edgerton for The Gift, which he's a very scary person in that one, definitely deserves a mention. Matt Damon for The Martian. He has to handle the film on his own on the Red Planet, and Matt Damon gets picked on a lot, especially by me. Thank you, Team America World Police. But he is somebody, and I constantly call him a potato, which I've stopped doing that, if you noticed. So 2015 was a year when I stopped calling Matt Damon a potato, even though he ended off actually creating potatoes on Mars. So well done, Matt Damon, for bringing that back to yourself. But my overall actor of the year was somebody who was, I think, definitely deserves it. He was in a movie that was really bad this year, but he was also in a movie that was absolutely breathtakingly brilliant. And so my best actor of the year is Miles Teller in Whiplash, because I don't think that he is supporting actor in that film. I think because his character is forefront, he is the main actor in that movie, and he is just absolutely outstanding. He gives every ounce of his body to that role. So for me, Miles Teller is my actor of the year.
Okay, I'm surprised by that. I mean, I do actually have him in my what we call sort of our honourable mentions. He is one of the ones that was kind of the runners-up to my top 5. Didn't quite make it in there. I mean, there's him. There's people like Ben Foster in The Programme, who really did shine in that film as playing Lance Armstrong. But my 5 are as follows. With number 5 is sort of Jake Gyllenhaal with Southpaw, because it's a list of performances. Actually, most of these are performances in films that the films were not that great, but the performances is what elevated them to being a better film. I had Tom Hanks for Bridge of Spies. Again, as I said earlier, not a career best, but it was a very good performance. Michael Fassbender in Steve Jobs. Now, I have issues with Steve Jobs because it doesn't really work for me as a Steve Jobs film, but it just as kind of a drama, I think it's great, and it is central. That is Michael Fassbender's performance, which is absolutely brilliant. My very, very close, almost gave it to winner was Tom Hardy not for Mad Max, but for Legend, because obviously playing the 2 roles of the Cray twins and doing such a fantastic job of both of them, not just one, but 2 roles in that film. But he was edged out for me just by Matt Damon in The Martian, because of the fact of that film had to rest on his shoulders so squarely and so much for the majority of the film, and it kept your attention. He was kind of suave but funny and realistic, and he had problems. He had scenes where he had problems, he had scenes where he was stressed out, he had scenes where he was, making light of things to keep himself calm, and that whole thing of that, the character had so many different things he went through, and you cared for the character, you got to know the character, and it was, I think, largely due to his performance.
So that's both Matt Damon and Miles Teller winning Best Actor. So let's go over to Best Actress then. So your nominations for Best Actress?
Yeah, well, I have in there, obviously, because it's a film that it was a fantastic film for, first of all, let's say, for female performances, because we've done this for a few years now, and every year we've said the list of actresses and lead female performances, it's always kind of been a bit, we kind of go, well, there's one or two there that's great, and then we go, well, what about this one or this one or this one? We always struggle to make up a list.
That was one of the reasons why we decided to change it a little bit, just to give us a little bit of breathing space, because trying to come up with enough nominations in a way for an overall list when we were combining them was just really difficult.
Yeah.
Because, women don't get the treatment that men do in America.
So my list comprises of my lead list comprises of Carey Mulligan for Suffragette, Maggie Smith for The Lady in the Van, which some may view it as being supporting. I don't. I think she is the main female character in the film, and the main, and it works for that. Emily Blunt for Sicario, which is a film I think has been kind of forgotten about, to be honest, quite a bit in a lot of people's opinions. Kate Blanchett for Carol, which is a film that I'm not a big fan of the film, but I do think the performances in the film were very, very good. But the winner of it that just blew me away altogether as well, in particular the film that it's from, and also the performance, is Kate Winslet for The Dressmaker, because of the fact that, first of all, she pulls off this perfect Australian accent that I had no problem with. Didn't for 1 second think, oh, it's Kate Winslet doing a performance. I just thought it's the character, and she does a great job in the film, because it's a dramatic role. It's a dark role. It's very witty, but it's very, very. The character goes through these changes and these developments, which it just makes for a great, engrossing character.
Yeah, and what I find funny is the fact that before Andrew announced these nominations there and his winner, we did say that it was difficult for us to meld the list together because we couldn't come up with enough nominations, yet all 5 that I've chosen you haven't mentioned.
Okay.
So that's a weird thing that I've got 5 completely different actresses.
I have 5 runners up here. I really want to bet they're all on there.
I doubt it.
I'll say if they're runner up or not then. Okay, because you call them out.
Okay then. So my nominations are Sheila Vand for A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
Okay, no.
Which you've definitely not seen this film. It's a really weird, dark, black and white vampire but non-vampire kind of film, and Sheila Vand is just outstanding in the film. She's very creepy. She always walks around with this black cloak on and reminds you of sort of like a monk in a way, and her mannerisms and movements is just brilliant. The director is going on to make a cannibal comedy movie with Jim Carrey in it. So that should be interesting. Nadia Hilke for Spring.
Nope.
Yeah. Alongside Lou Taylor Pucci in Spring, I think she definitely deserves a mention because she handles a very complex character, and I think she handles it really well. Micah Monroe for It Follows.
No, I haven't seen that, and I do want to see it.
Which I really did like. It Follows. It sort of like harkens back to the 1970s kind of teen creepy slasher movies. Julianne Moore for Still Alice.
I had her down there, but I thought it was a good performance. It just didn't stand out to me as being as good as I know that she can do.
Yeah, I think it was amazing. I thought it was an absolutely fantastic performance from her. But my winner of Best Actress of the Year, and sort of like it was for 2 films because I couldn't decide which one to choose it for, but it is Alicia Vikander for Ex Machina / Testament of Youth. Because I first saw Alicia Vikander in Testament of Youth. I saw, because Ex Machina was released a week after. And if I had to choose one out of the 2, I would say Testament of Youth over Ex Machina, even though she's brilliant in Ex Machina. It's seen her for the first time in Testament of Youth, especially the character that she does play in it. Could have been one that would have been a wishy-washy person. She is somebody who decides to help out during the war when her brother is being sent over to France to help out the French soldiers there. And she tries her best to do as much as she can, so she becomes a nurse, and it's a difficult thing for her to be able to do. And so I thought she handled the role absolutely superbly. And so for me, it's Alicia Vikander who wins Best Actress.
Okay, moving on to Best Supporting Actor then. So this is one that you're going to go first, but I'm going to say we were discussing this during music playing earlier, and I have my my top 5 working out, but I've had to basically save my top 2 because I cannot basically decide between my top 2 performances of the year, so I've had to kind of do a shared winning of Best Supporting Actor. I'm curious to see if either of mine is the one that's won yours or not.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if the one that I've chosen, because it was pretty easy for me to actually choose my Best Supporting Actor. There was one person who I put head and shoulders above everybody else, but other people in the list included Colin Firth for Kingsman, The Secret Service, because I thought Taron Egerton was the lead role in that film, even though it's somebody like Colin Firth. You think, he is the lead actor in that one, but it's all about Taron Egerton's character, and I think Colin Firth, especially that infamous church scene, that's really difficult, and he just went with it with aplomb. Cody Smith-McPhee for Slow West, which you might be slightly shocked about that choice there.
I'm surprised, because I thought it was an okay film, but it's just it's one of those ones that I haven't really thought much of it since seeing it. It hasn't really stuck with me.
I think the best thing about that film is the strong performances from both Michael Fassbender and Cody Smith-McPhee. But I think Smith-McPhee sort of like steals the thunder a little bit from Fassbender. I think he plays his character much better than what Fassbender did in the film. Domhnall Gleeson for Ex Machina. So all 3 people in the Ex Machina triangle have now been mentioned. J.K. Simmons for Whiplash. But my overall winner of the year is Mark Rylance for Bridge of Spies. So I just think, even though he's not in the film that much, he is just outstanding. He outshines Tom Hanks, and that's really, really hard to do. But Mark Rylance's character is just, even his little tiny mannerisms in the courtroom scene, where when Tom Hanks looks at him and sees the trouble that's happened, and when he gets asked would he be able to change it, he just turns around and goes, "Would it help?" And he does that a couple of times, but it's such that quippy kind of snap moment that somebody does, and I don't think anybody else would have been able to perform it as well as Rylance has. So Mark Rylance is my Best Supporting Actor.
Which is interesting, because I mean, I've got another thing as well going through my 5. Now, you kind of merged 2 performances together for one actor. I've done 2 performances separately for the same actor. And I've got Joel Edgerton in there for 2 of my sort of leading up 5, with The Gift firstly, and then Black Mass, because he did great performances in both those, very different performances in them, and they were very good supporting performances. Not good enough though, however, unfortunately, because of the other ones. Sicario, I chose Benicio del Toro, because he has such a great sort of dark and mysterious character in there. But then my joint winners is the same as your 2, which you got. You obviously decided between the 2 of them. I just couldn't decide between J.K. Simmons in Whiplash and Mark Rylance in Bridge of Spies, because they are so good on the screen, the both of them. And J.K. Simmons has got such vileness and such energy to him on the screen, and Mark Rylance has this abundant opposite, this kind of lack of energy and this kind of warm tiredness, but he's just there, but he's got so much he just emotes so much by doing so little. And that's the thing that's interesting, is they're kind of polar opposites of their performances, but they are both that good.
Yeah, it proves that if we've actually both included them in our top 10, our top lists there. But moving on to Best Supporting Actress. Now, how easy was this one for you?
This was actually, I think, the hardest one for me, because it was again the thing of trying to find and come up with and think of all the films we've seen, and it's, as much as we've said it's a better lot this year for being able to say stronger female roles, there was still a sort of a lack of some supporting female roles to be able to pick out some that really stood out. I mean, I had a few, and then I was trying to.
One question that I have though is, do you find it much more difficult to come up with a winner or even nominations for supporting roles both in female and male compared to coming up with Best Actor and Best Actress? Is it a much more difficult task to be able to ascertain somebody who deserves to be mentioned as supporting? Because in a way it's sort of like dissing the actress a little bit. That you're only good to be a supporting person and not a lead person.
Well, I mean, you have things like I mean, in going back to best actress one. Sorry, I didn't make it into my top 5, but I did have there Saoirse Ronan for Brooklyn. It just didn't make it into my top 5. But then I also not making it into my top 5 of best supporting actress. You have Julie Walters, who has a small role in that film. So there you have the whole thing. You know, an actress who is the lead character in a film, and the supporting character who's a small one who only appears in it for, you know, a fraction of that time. It's an example of that. But I did find putting together a list and picking out my list of supporting actresses, I think the hardest one to do.
So, what are your nominations and ultimate winner of Best Supporting Actress then?
Right, well, I have Judy Davis for The Dressmaker, because it was a great role, and she looks so frazzled and acts so frazzled in that film. But then you can see obviously there's more beneath the surface as the film goes on, and there's such a kind of an opulence to the role, which is brilliant. Abigail Breslin for Maggie. Because I was surprised when I saw it at how much that, and the thing that's actually the most surprising for it, though not worthy of being really into even my runners-up list of best actors, was Arnold Schwarzenegger in the film.
To be honest, I don't think I've actually heard what you thought about Maggie.
I thought it was a very nicely done bit of kind of zombie noir, and it's a very odd indie film, but it has this kind of thing of that it's not indie because of the fact of that it's a small film. It's indie because of the fact of that it just tries to do. It's a very, very kind of closed off thing. It does its own thing and keeps focused on the drama rather than a lot of films would have done the whole thing of going, oh, there's a big zombie threat, it's all happening. I think it's not about the zombie threat. It's about this father and daughter relationship, and that she is going to die. It doesn't matter the fact that it's zombie. It's the fact of that it's the dynamic of the relationship of that one is going to die soon, and that's it. And it's a great drama that's also it's using that kind of sci-fi twist to kind of emphasize the dramatic moments of it. But she's in there obviously for that performance because she is very good in the film in there. I have Kate Winslet there for Steve Jobs because she does do a very good, if underwhelming, performance in the film, but a very good role, a very good performance in the film overall. My almost won it for me is Rooney Mara for Carol, because I do think she is a great actress and I do like her, and I just found the film itself very much just underwhelming, and her performance is very good in it, but just it doesn't sit with me. It's something just doesn't sit with me for it, so it was kind of distracted by that. The one that I'm most surprised about, and I don't know if you've seen this actually or not, and I don't know, I'd be curious to see what your view is, because I don't know if you've seen it or not, is Emma Thompson for The Legend of Barney Thompson.
No, I haven't seen it. No,
because it's a very odd film, but she's such a great kind of horrible person in the film, but it's one of those, again, it's like the horrible character that you want to watch because it's such a train wreck and you can't turn your eyes away.
Well, again, supporting actress wise, I've got 5 completely different ones to you. So it is again sort of like poo-pooing on what we've said about 10 minutes ago. But yeah, runners up in my best supporting actress included rhte for Housebound. Housebound, if you don't know what it is, it's a small New Zealand sort of like schlocky comedy horror movie, and rhte plays the mother of the lead character, and she pretty much steals the show very much like the mother in Brain Dead or Dead Alive, depending on where you are. And her character, it's got the sarcastic quips, but if you need her, she's definitely there, and she will lend a hand to try and stop the evil bad guy in the film. You've also got Jill Lawson for The Taking of Deborah Logan. She's the one who plays Deborah Logan, the lead actress. She plays a daughter in the film, and I think it's a really difficult role to actually play, and I think Jill Lawson does it brilliantly. Anne-Marie Duff for Suffragette. I think her character's slightly underused in the film, but what she does is is brilliant. I think she handles it very well. Jessica Chastain and Crimson Peak. Now, I had to get Crimson Peak in there somewhere, and I think I love Jessica Chastain in it. I thought she was really creepy. I didn't think Mia Wasikowska was like strong enough to be nominated in Best Actress, but I think Jessica Chastain was much more strong enough to be nominated in Best Supporting Actress. But my overall winner, and this might surprise you, and it surprised me, is Kristen Stewart for Still Alice. An actress
surprised.
Yeah, an actress who we've sort of like dissed over the years for having one facial expression manages to end up being my Best Supporting Actress, because it could have been for both this and The Clouds of Sales Maria, because I think she's fantastic in that.
But not for American Ultra.
No, American Ultra, she's watchable in American Ultra.
Yeah.
So at least I'll give her the credit for that. But in Still Alice, when you've got Julianne Moore, who's doing some of, I think, her best acting of her career, Kristen Stewart does definitely the best acting of her career. She's amazing in this film because she's sort of there to help her mother, but she's also there she's got problems of her own as well, and you care about both characters equally. She is just outstanding. So my supporting actress is Kristen Stewart for Still Alice.
Okay, so it's time again for some music. Gonna play a clip from one of the films that we've quite applauded this show this year, which is Mad Max Fury Road, which has a musical score by the man formerly known as Junkie XL, Tom Holkenborg. So it's an interesting choice, I think, and it is kind of it's a film that. It's an action film, but it does have these emotional beats in it, which are kind of what makes it outstanding, because it's a great piece of music. Which you get action, you get these emotional bits, you get some nice music in it, which you wouldn't think comes from someone who's basically started out like a DJ, and it's really impressive. So, gonna play you a clip from that just now. So, moving forwards with our last section of the show, we come to our Best Direction category. where obviously we've picked our best sort of directors of the year and their films, and so I mean, just go through. We do 5 each, leading up to our favourites. It seems we've done with the other categories. So, what are your 5 favourite directions of the films of the year?
This is really difficult.
It is.
For me personally, this was the hardest one to choose, because there's been some fantastic films released this year. Some directors who have actually come to the forefront, who've originally done some films that were slightly questionable, but now have sort of like brought it all back. So it was really difficult to choose, but I have got 5, and so Damien Chazelle, who did Whiplash, I thought it was outstanding. I think it wasn't his directorial debut, but he had done like a film or just a couple of films before Whiplash, and it's such a hard film to get right, and he did it brilliantly. George Miller for Mad Max Fury Road, he comes back every now and again to show his face, and if that's the case, then I'll gladly wait for him to return to the directing duties if it's going to get something like Mad Max Fury Road. Ridley Scott for The Martian, under the writing tutelage of Drew Goddard. It's just outstanding. It is Ridley Scott. When Ridley Scott does something brilliantly, when he does get back to his best, he really does get back to his best. Pete Docter for Inside Out. It's nice to actually have an animated film in this list for me, personally, but it's somebody who has done some fantastic work for Pixar, and in need they get somebody who is got a track record of outstanding films, and so Pete Docter is that one, and he can pretty much save Pixar. So if it ever happens again, Good Dinosaur, it was sort of like slightly, wasn't up there with the Pixar's best, so he does help out with Toy Story 4, but yeah, it's nice to get somebody like him back. But my director of the year is just a film that I'm gladly going to watch every single year now. It's a director who saved the Halloween genre films.
So it's not a Studio Ghibli film then?
No, so my director of the year is Michael Dougherty for Krampus, because I absolutely loved Krampus, and Krampus is instantly going to be one of my films to watch every single Christmas. And like I said, he changed the face of horror movies for Halloween. Trick or Treat came out in 2007, and it's an instant classic. For me, Krampus is an instant Christmas classic. It's a fantastic film, and that's all thanks to Michael Dougherty. So Michael Dougherty for me is best director.
Okay, some that I have in mind as well, same as yours, but not exactly the same. One I have in there for near the bottom of my list is Matthew Vaughn for Kingsman: Secret Service, because it just all came together under his direction really well, and I thought he did a really good job with the film. So it's a fun film that I've watched several times, and there's little things in it that you notice every time. Whiplash by Damien Chazelle again. George Miller for Mad Max Fury Road, so not a lot of surprises between us there. Steven Spielberg for Bridge of Spies. As I said, it was the whole thing of that Bridge of Spies had a not career performance best from Tom Hanks and from Steven Spielberg. If it had been Steven Spielberg at his career best, I think he would have won this. But the thing that's interesting is we had a director who has had a troubled time recently, and have now come back to being a great director at the career best, and that is Ridley Scott with The Martian. So he is the winner for me of best direction, because he's done a great job with The Martian. He's come back to show, this is Ridley Scott that we love. This is why you love things like Blade Runner, and those kind of science fiction things that he's done before that stood out and were kind of they stood above everything else, because he does a great job of putting it all together and presenting a fantastic film.
Yeah, agreed. Now on to our ultimate plaudit. It is best film. So your best film list.
Yeah, and again, a lot of films we've already mentioned here. I'm going to say films that I have that were close to getting in my top 5. I'll go for them as well, because there was Black Mass, which I thought was really a great film, but it does have problems. The Gift, I was really kind of blown away by how good a film it is. The Dressmaker is one that really, again, blew me away. I was not expecting it when I saw it to be so good and so engrossing. I've also put in there, I mean, you and I have a different opinion on this, but I do think that Star Wars: The Force Awakens, not being in the top 5 of my best films, it's good to see Star Wars back magic again, and J.J. Abrams has done a great thing with it. But my top 5 are in this order. Steven Spielberg has got done a great job with Bridge of Spies. I do love Inside Out. I have to admit I love Inside Out, but it's not right up there for me. It's close, but no cigar. Whiplash is my third favourite. The Martian, I'm not going to give best film, because it's, as much as it is a great film, Mad Max Fury Road for me was the film that did it. It was the best film overall. I don't say that it's been the best directed, because I do think The Martian was best directed out of the two, but I do think that overall Mad Max Fury Road was just, there was more there. It didn't have any problems that The Martian does have a pacing. That's the only thing really why The Martian has not kind of come first. So for me, best film is Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, and so my list includes these films, not in any particular order. So Krampus, I'm so happy to put Krampus in there. It's the most recent film to actually make my list. Inside Out, which is a fantastic animated film, brilliantly well done. Finally, Studio Ghibli gets a mention, and the only mention for The Tale of Princess Kaguya. Absolutely beautiful animated film by Isao Takahata. Hand drawn by pencil, hand pencil drawings, and it's just sumptuous to watch. Mad Max Fury Road. We've plauded over Mad Max Fury Road throughout the show. It is an outstanding film, but I have actually changed my mind during tonight's show about my film of the year. And so my film of the year, and it will show on my list as well, is Song of the Sea. Because I over the last week, my top 3 has been constantly changing. It's always been a fight up between Mad Max Fury Road, Song of the Sea, and Inside Out. And it's very rare for that to happen with me. I'm normally the one who goes, oh, movies suck. I'm not the one who goes, oh, this film is absolutely outstanding. So it's a rare thing for that to hear from me. And to have 3 films to battle against each other is even more rare. But Song of the Sea is just... It's a movie that very few people have seen, which is a crime in itself. But it's a movie that invokes so much emotion in you that it definitely deserves to be made Movie of the Year. And it's nice to have 2 films that are completely on different ends of the spectrum. And it shows you not just how diverse both mine and Andrew's tastes are, but it's nice to have a movie, 2 different films as film of the year, rather than just the one overall movie of the year, which we did with our top 10 lists. That's what it was for. This one was our own personal ones, and for me, Song of the Sea was the movie that got to me the most.
Okay, well, you've got there's 3 categories that you've got to go through, but if I can actually, because I've just picked a movie for each of these 3 smaller categories, but I think you've got more than one, haven't you, for each of them? Yeah. But before that, I'm going to do one, because I've got one I just want to do a special mention one, which is for the fact of, I did briefly touch on it earlier, with Fast and Furious 7. The whole thing of Paul Walker passing away during the film means that it should not have been a complete film, really. You had the whole thing of that. You had things like Philip Seymour Hoffman had passed away, and the Hunger Games films managed to make what they had work, because there wasn't much they needed to do with Philip Seymour Hoffman's absence. That they had managed to film most of his things. When Paul Walker had died for Fast and Furious 7, there was a lot that he had not filmed, and the film subsequently has had to go through changes in order to be able to accommodate his obviously not being there for parts of it, and doing CG elements to fill in those gaps, and it has come out with, while not the best of the Fast and Furious films, one that was worthwhile and fits up there and with the rest of the franchise, and surprised by being actually not only a solid film, but kind of an emotional send-off for Paul Walker and the Paul Walker character in the film. So I just want to have a kind of a special mention for that, because it's very easy that they could have gone, oh well, this is a disaster, we'll have to write him out completely and do it again, or we'll have to do something where they completely would have butchered it up, and instead they managed to actually make it work, and that's quite impressive.
Yeah, it is, but yeah, as you alluded to, I've got three smaller categories of my own, which are best animated feature, biggest surprise, and biggest disappointment. I'll quickly run through best animated feature, because you can probably guess what is my favourite animated film of the year.
And probably mine as well.
In the list, I've got The Tale of Princess Kaguya, Big Hero 6, so BMX. BMX is brilliant in that. Minions, no surprise. Inside Out, but my overall winner is Song of the Sea. Any animated films that stood out this year for you?
Well, I've just put one option down for these, but I have put Inside Out because it's good to see Pixar back on top again, and doing again innovative animation, not just in the way it looks, but also in the ideas behind it as well.
Okay then, and so biggest surprise. Now these are the movies that shocked you. Just made you go taken aback a little bit on, actually you weren't expecting it to be that good, but it turns out to be much better than you anticipated. And so I've got in there The Gift. So I didn't expect it. It came out of nowhere, that film. Insidious Chapter 3, which it did surprise me because the sequel wasn't very good, whereas the third one under Lee Winnell, I thought he did a fantastic job. It was his directorial debut, even though he's written all previous Insidious movies. He did that and Cooties, and I think Insidious Chapter 3 is just fantastic. Inside Out surprised me a lot because the fact that previous Pixar movies weren't as high quality, and I thought they've lost the plot now. I don't know how they're going to get it back. And then they surprised you with something like Inside Out. Maggie. Arnold Schwarzenegger doing a serious movie, his first ever zombie film as well, Abigail Breslin's second film after Zombieland, but both of them worked fantastically together. But my biggest surprise of the year, Mad Max Fury Road. It just shocked me, because the trailer was really good, and I was thinking after watching the trailer, it's not going to be as good as the trailer, but it surpassed the trailer by a million miles. And if you've watched the trailer, you know the trailer is just outstanding. The film itself is beyond outstanding. So Mad Max Fury Road is my biggest surprise of the year. Right,
and believe it or not, the one I've written down, again you had it in your list, was The Gift with Joel Edgerton. And not just the fact of Joel Edgerton acting in the film, Joel Edgerton writing it, Joel Edgerton directing it. I did not know what to expect when I saw it, and I didn't expect it to be that good. I didn't expect it to be that dark and warped as well. And yet also that much of a solid film. As I say, the thing with it that was impressive is that it's a kind of film that you have seen the type before, but you haven't seen exactly what this is before, and also that it manages to keep its cool and keep itself calm, and it doesn't just let itself get run away at the end, which is the rare thing, because normally with that type of film you would get to the end and it all kind of starts to fall apart, and it's the run around, or someone's going to kill someone sort of thing, and it's not. It turns into something completely different.
Yeah, and so I want to round it off with biggest disappointment. Now these are the films where I was expecting it to be at least average at best, or pretty decent, and then they turned out to be much worse than we anticipated. So in that list for me is Magic Mike XXL.
I still haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, we really like Magic Mike. It's a stripper movie, pretty much sort of like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, is it's a spy movie but not about spies. Whereas Magic Mike didn't always centre around the stripping stuff. It was all about the characters, whereas the sequel just threw that out the water and just went with the stripping stuff, and it made it boring. Sinister 2. I really like Kieran Foy's Citadel. I really like Sinister. Sinister 2 was just a terrible mess. It just didn't have anything brilliant from Sinister and Bagul. So it gets a mention. Fantastic Four is in that list, because Josh Trank, he did do really good with Chronicle, and yet he made a car crash of a mess for Fantastic Four. Avengers Age of Ultron, because I really did like Avengers. Yet
everyone harps on about that, and I just
I was bored with Avengers Age of Ultron, unfortunately. But my biggest disappointment of the year, and it annoyed me that it turned out to be as bad as it is Insurgent. because Divergence was a really sort of like good stepping stone for it. Sort of like The Maze Runner was a really good stepping stone for the series, and whereas The Scorch Trials wasn't as good as The Maze Runner, it still, at least it had elements from The Maze Runner that made The Maze Runner a good film. Whereas Insurgent sort of like ditched what made Divergent a really good film and just went for the very stereotypical, over-the-top CGI action bore fest that it was. So that's my biggest disappointment of the year, Insurgent.
Okay, as much as I agree with a lot of them, especially things like Insurgent, I totally agree with that as well. It was a shame. The one that was the biggest disappointment, I mean, Fantastic Four was a big disappointment to me, but it wasn't as much of a disappointment because I knew it was going to be a disaster from everything that we'd seen and everything we were seeing about it and hearing. It was not going to be good, so my expectations were disappointing, were below that. My biggest disappointment, and subsequently what has been a result of it being so poorly received, is Tomorrowland: The World Beyond. Because I was really looking forward to it. I was really hoping, and I enjoyed it, but I was really kind of, after it's kind of like a foul taste in your mouth of like, yeah, it's not as good as it could have been. It should have been a really, really good film and it had all these aspirations, and it was an original title as well. It's not a sequel, and yet it wasn't done. It didn't do that well. It was a disappointment, and it's a shame because, annoyingly, the thing that happened as a result of it is that Disney has decided they were cancelling Tron 3, which I really, really wanted to see. So, I mean, I'm hoping now Disney has Star Wars and they're doing really well numbers with that. Maybe they'll think, oh, we can put a bit of money aside and do Tron 3 now. But I doubt they will, and I'm really annoyed at that. So, Tomorrowland itself, but also the things it caused by being a disappointment, is what's my biggest disappointment of the year.
That must really, really annoy you.
It does, because I mean, the trailer is fantastic. I mean, and I don't mean it's like you get a lot of trailers where you go, it's a great trailer. The trailer is fantastic because the trailer doesn't show you the film. The trailer gives you a glimpse and sets up the premise very simply, and that's it. And you just get the very simple visions of these ideas, and then you go and see the film, and it's just a very bland and doesn't really have any payoff to this great concept.
Yeah, it's sort of. I agree with you. I've seen the film twice, and I was bored most.
It's not a bad film. It's just very, very underwhelming.
Yeah, in the hands of somebody like Brad Bird, and with George Clooney in it, you're expecting something pretty special. And like you said, with it being a brand new IP, it might have kick-started something interesting. But whereas in fact it didn't. It just didn't do that. So I sort of agree with you on that front.
So that's it. No? Nothing else to add? No. So I've got my list of my favourite pieces of music, my favourite scores of the year as I've been going through the show, playing them. Did a different thing this year. I think it worked okay. If you weren't sort of listening all the way through, we did start off with a clip from a track from The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which was by Daniel Pemberton. We had a track from Star Wars The Force Awakens by John Williams, a late entry into my list of favourites, but a worthy one because it's a great soundtrack and it's John Williams back doing Star Wars again. Fast and Furious 7 score by Brian Tyler has been one of my favourites and much listened to this year, but not quite winning as much as it's been a great, fantastic film, as Mad Max Fury Road, the score for that by Tom Holkenborg, also known as Junkie XL.
Can I just interject slightly before you reveal your ultimate one, because I know you're going to play it out just to see the end of the show.
Yeah.
But I want to add my thought, because I don't normally choose scores or whatever. That's your department. That's where you excel at, because you've got a good ear when it comes to interesting scores and stuff like that. I just want to point out one score that I absolutely adored this year, and it's slightly cheating in a way considering we are a movie show. But for me, my favourite score, and I do listen to it a lot because it is so impactful, it's for a video game. It's for a game called Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, which is my game of the year as well. I would just, while you were actually speaking about that, Mark from Following the Nerd has just sent me a message asking me to do a top 10 video game list for followingthenerd.com. and everybody's gone to the Rapture, it is my number one game of the year. And it's not technically a game in a way, it is an experience, because the Rapture has happened, and you need to discover why it happened. And it's not one where you've got mutants or anything like that to kill. There is no weapons in the game. There is no puzzles proper puzzles to do. It's just you are going to areas in the game and listening to people's lives, how the Rapture has affected them and what actually happened to them. It's a very emotional game. Lasts for about 2.5 hours. But the soundtrack, which is done by Jessica Curry, is just absolutely outstanding. Absolutely outstanding. I implore everybody to head onto YouTube or head over to Amazon or anywhere that you can download soundtracks and just listen to it from beginning to end, because the emotions that it will stir around in you. If you've lost a family member during the year, if you've lost a family member any time during your lifetime, if anybody close to you is gone, if you've met with your first love, if you've just done something that impacts your life in any way, shape or form, this soundtrack will get to you, and the game itself will get to you. It will make you see that video games are more than just video games. There are something special, and when something like that is created both in audio form and visual form, then it's something that needs to be mentioned. So for me, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture is definitely my soundtrack of the year.
Okay. Well, I've not even heard of that. I don't recognise the name, but definitely I will have to try and check that out and see what that's like. But my favourite one of the year, and it's an odd thing that happens sometimes with the films. You get films that aren't great, but they can have a great soundtrack, as has happened with this one. Any guesses? It's a film we haven't actually mentioned tonight at all.
Oh, I was going to say The Cobbler.
No. It's from Jupiter Ascending.
Oh, interesting choice.
Yeah.
Well, I knew you sort of were applauded in Jupiter Ascending when it came out for how brilliant the soundtrack is.
It is, yeah.
I forgot about that movie.
It is a great soundtrack. I mean, it's Michael Giacchino, who will be familiar to probably yourself and anyone else listening. He did, the Star Trek ones, the new Star Trek films.
Didn't he do Super 8 as well?
He did Super 8. He did Inside Out as well. He does quite a lot of films.
He's got a fantastic ear.
Yeah.
I love his sound.
But he did a really amazing thing with the score for Jupiter Ascending, and incorporated a lot of different instruments and a lot of different sounds, and also great choir use as well. And I just love the themes he created. It's a shame the film wasn't up to the same level. As much as I do love it and I enjoy it, it's not a great film. But the score is a great film, and it was very nice that it was also released as a 2-disc release, which gave you a lot of the score. And this is actually the first track from that, so it's I think a great track to end the show on. We'll be back around about January the 4th, I believe it is.
Yep.
With, amongst other things, reviews of things like Joy. Because that's coming out soon there, and we will see you back on Monday Movie Show on Spreaker. Around about then, check out mondaymovieshow.co.uk for further updates when we have that all confirmed. So until then, we'll say bye bye now.
Until 2016.
2016, yeah. And we'll leave you with this track by Michael Giacchino, my favourite score of the year for Jupiter Ascending.